welcome to our event. My name is Brian Thor, and normally I run an arts foundation on Romney Marsh. I want to begin with some what they call housekeeping, which is to say that the fire exit is there, and go out through the kitchen and into the garden. The main doorway that came in can also be used to exit on the other side. Next, there's only one loo available. It's out behind the reception desk there, and it's a disabled toilet. So anybody who's using it, please leave it clean and tight, because it's the only one in use. We have a distinguished line of speakers. Chris Hammond has already introduced himself. He's chairman of the East Kent European Movement. Our visitors from London are Susanne Oberhauser, head of the EU Parliamentary Liaison office to the UK, and Jeremy Sullivan, Cultural Relations Officer. They will each be speaking. After that, there are quite a large number more speakers, so that we can approach our topic, which is relations between East Kent and the European countries. Everyone can approach it in their own field and their own perspective. I would like you, at the same time, if you each introduce yourself as you stand up to speak, and I want to impose 3 rules. The first one is 3 to 5 minutes only, so that everybody gets a chance to speak. It's a sort of democratic meeting. There's to be no waving national teeth about Brexit. We've all done that. We're going to try and be constructive today. This is our Canterbury MP, Rosie. She needs no introduction, and she will in fact be our first speaker in a moment. So the third rule is, when we've all had our say, I hope there'll be time for speaking, for questions and discussions and points of clarification. Anybody who feels that they'd like to take the subject further with any one of the speakers could make appointments during the afternoon, especially with our visitors from Jeremy Sullivan, Susanne Oberhauser, because they are here this afternoon and would be happy to talk to anyone who would like to. And a few of us are going for lunch after the meeting at the Café de Soleil. Anybody who would like to come is welcome to come. Right in the restaurant's got food. So, with no further ado, Rosie Duffield.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you very much to all of you who've come to Canterbury on what's turned out to be an amazing day, actually. That's fantastic. I've only got a sort of 1 or 2 minute speech because I really am here to hear from everybody else. And I think everyone's heard so many speeches and rants from me about Brexit over the years, so I'll just say a few words. 5 years ago, the UK decided that we'd be better off outside of the EU. Well, something they did. So we began a slow and treacherous journey along the shiny path to freedom that turned out to actually be a little dirt track full of potholes and abandoned traffic cones, with broken and misleading signposts all facing the wrong way. Many who'd signed up with enthusiasm and excitement were finding that their roadmaps to the promised land had in fact been written in visible ink, and they were left stranded with a list of broken promises, a helpline number that went straight to voicemail, and a tangle of red tape blocking their every inch forward. People were sold a con. And week by week, the scale of that con is being revealed, as we discover more promises that will rise and more issues that remain unsolved or completely unaddressed. There are areas of our way of life that we simply have no access to anymore. And instead of guidance or a new set of working arrangements, the government has packed its bags, fled, and said, sorry, you're on your own. They've said that to our fishers, our farmers, our importers, our exporters, families, universities, language schools, and the tourism trade. But most abandoned of all has been our arts sector. Our thriving, internationally cooperative, diverse, sparkling jewel in our crown has been effectively set adrift in the wide Brexit sea. Far from just being a bit sad, this multi-million-pound industry generates more income for the UK than any other. And by the arts, I'm not referring to a wealthy elite group sitting in a posh theatre. I'm talking about lighting technicians, camera operators, booking office staff, touring theatrical productions, events coordinators, writers, artists, musicians of all genres and grades. They have been undervalued, left to try and survive and navigate the impossible new order of doors firmly closed and borders shutting them out. But we here all know the downsides. This group and those committed to Britain's place in Europe as part of a modern progressive democracy won't just go quietly. We will forge new relationships, strengthen those bonds and ties that we hold dear. And across Kent, we can build on our successes, hold all political groups and politicians to account, and cooperate together by working together for progressive aims.
Sorry, can we just move the mics? Is it possible to speak into the mic?
They're proximity mics, they won't be too good on that.
Our next speaker is Susanne Oberhauser from Europe. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much, Randy, for this invitation. Sound okay? Okay. So
It should be according to the
good.
machine, but the people are...
Yeah. So my name is Susanne Oberhauser, and I'm the head of the Office of the European Parliament in London. Very good to be here. It's actually my first time out in London since February last year. So this is the first visit to post-Brexit England and the UK. So I'm very pleased to be here and following also this hard-moving words from Rosie. It's good to connect with people like you and to basically what we want to do is to keep the conversation flowing and to offer also a hope for those people who feel that they have lost something and something is gone and our presence and what our politicians who took this decision to keep this office in London is to show that we are still there and we want to maintain contact, conversation and provide a hope and to help making connections, connect you with the members of the European Parliament and to be there. That's a little bit about our setup. We are, as I said, we are the European Parliament Office. We are a very small team in London in Business Square. There is a larger team, and that is the official the delegation, which is the embassy of the EU. These are the diplomats who do what diplomats do in third countries. So we are not that. We are not the executive branch. Our main task is to support the dialogue between the parliaments, the Parliamentary Liaison. We try to organize meetings, or we did not we had successful webinars between the chairs of the various of committees, Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Lords and the chair in the European Parliament. We will have a webinar after the summer between the two chairs of the Culture Committee in order to discuss exactly what Rosie mentioned here. On other issues, international trade, but also questions on when we had our event on to mark International Women's Day. We had the chair of the Gender Equal Women's Committee talking. So we try to support that link between the parliamentarians. We will also be there to support what the new agreement, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, and there it is foreseen that there will be a Parliamentary Partnership Assembly where members of the UK Parliament and members of the European Parliament will be there to lead, to scrutinise the implementation of the agreement, but also to do, to look at the implementation of the withdrawal agreement, and that is, at least from the side of the European Parliament, would be something important to do, and to have a broader legislative dialogue, so as to know where the two sides will also go in the future, and see that this can be, in a way, perhaps, that at least each side knows what the other side does, if not that being coordinated. So this is the political liaison branch of our work. Okay. Then just one more word. Then the other
In
bit is
German, I'm afraid the technicians are making a lot of noise, so it's difficult to hear the speaker. It will be a bit tough here.
Noted, thank you.
So our other leg where we stand on, and my colleague will talk in a moment more about that as well, is the outreach activities. We will talk about specifically culture, but we also we focus in particular on two groups. This is the EU 27 citizens, who are not only the 3 million that we thought it was 5 years ago, but now are nearly double that number, and who are still, most of them having a vote for the European Parliament, so we want to engage with them and also to keep that dialogue open and to provide for them also a forum so that they have a direct contact to those members that they will be able to elect. And the other group that we are particularly focusing is on young people, and we have two programs. We offer educational sessions for secondary schools. So if you know of any school who would be interested in having a session about the EU, the European Parliament, all the information is on our website, but we're also here to get that. And we have a project that is called European Parliament Ambassador School Program, where schools who want to dig a little deeper would organize sessions, would organize stands, would do something on Europe Day, and they would get the support from us and material, and they would be then ambassadors, pupils are the junior ambassadors and teachers senior ambassadors, and they will be able to meet with ambassadors from schools from all the member states. So that is also something we have just set up now this year. So that is, and we are still in the process of recruiting schools, and if you know any school that would be interested, please send them our way. And then just one more thing, we have a network, a platform that's called together.eu, and that is also where organizations can or individual organizations can organize events and put that on that platform and linking up with others. So this is a bit of a recruitment tool for activists and people who want to contribute and do things. So I'll stop here. I get another look, and I'm available for questions later. Thank you. I think Jeremy, you're the next one.
Thank you, Brian.
Do you want to swap with me? So you're
No, I'm happy here, thank you. So, my name is Jeremy Sullivan, and I am the Cultural Relations Officer. Was less than a year at the European Parliament. Before that, I worked for the European Commission representation for 33 years. And for the 20 of those years, I focused on culture, and very much I've known as Mr. Canapes and Mingling, about having private views and putting on concerts. Now we have a gallery, the 12-star gallery, where Bryony has organised 2 exhibitions in the last 5 years or so. I don't know if any of you came to see them. One was portraits of Europe, another was European still lives. The gallery just reopened with a show by Paul Arago, celebrating the presidency of Portugal. In the summer we have an exhibition by the alumni of the Artists in Residence School of the British School of Champions. And so we have six large exhibitions a year. You're all welcome to come and see them. We also work with an organisation called UNIC, which is the EU National Institute of Culture in London. There are 70 such clusters all around the world. The London one is the largest, with over 30 members. And we have monthly meetings. Traditionally they were at Europe House. And we have very good contacts with the cultural attachés and the directors of those institutes. So we are a liaison service. If you need to be in touch with them, let us know. We also put on talks. The last year and a half, as Susanne was saying, they've mostly been online. As of September, we're going to try them in a hybrid form. We start on the 17th of September with an event with Europa Nostra UK. So Europa Nostra is the European Heritage Organisation, which some of you might know about. They make awards to heritage projects. And they've been told that they can, even though the UK is no longer part of the EU, they can remain, because this is a professional network as much as anything, and they recognise the value of having the UK in that network, and the UK recognises the value of being part of it. One big event we do every year is Europe Day, and we, for the last 12 years, had concerts at St John Smith Square, with folk like the European Union Youth Orchestra, the European Union Rock Orchestra, and most recently the Northern Falls Festival Orchestra, which originated in the northeast, but consists of players from all over Europe. They were sensational, and this last concert you can still watch. It's accessible from our website. Where discussions about what we will do next year, but what we would like to do is to involve everybody in Europe Day. And when I first worked for the European Commission, there were such things as Europe Weeks all around the country, where a bus would go out and hand out leaflets, and people would rush to it and be excited, and then they were harassed by members of UKIP and journalists from the Daily Mail saying, why are you giving pencils and rubbers to members of our school children? We know this is terrible propaganda and waste of money. So that led to us withdrawing and becoming more and more isolated, our office. But we would like to, now that we can, they can't say that we're using your money, to get out and meet people. And Europe Day is a good opportunity, so let us know if you'd like to do anything for Europe Day. One last thing is the Lux Award, which is the only film prize organised by a parliament in the world. This year's winner has just been announced, a collective of Romanian film. And if you would like to organise an event, say with local Curzon Cinema, we could get the rights to that film. We could get you, let's say, the director or an actor from it, and you could have an event around that. So that's one positive offer I can make to you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Carl Wright. I'll ask him to introduce himself. He has so many affiliations and titles, it would be impossible for anyone else. I think he's going to mainly be talking about twinning.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. My arithmetic is not very good. 48 years ago, I was younger than I am today. I remember going into I'm a very passionate old Morris Minor Mini and driving from Dover to Ostend on the 2nd of January 1973 to take up a post in the European Commission, which was sort of my, as it were, European adventure. And of course, over the years I've been involved in many international organisations, most recently the Commonwealth, but also the United Nations. But throughout that period I've always been very closely engaged with the European Parliament, with European policy, especially development issues. And so Europe very much my blood. And I, like many people in this room, was very upset, very angry with Brexit, although I followed particularly very hard Brexit, which the Johnson government had imposed on us. So my wife was saying I was getting really intolerant, I was getting impossible to live with, so I was feeling really upset and very angry. And then I thought, well, let's try and channel this anger into something more constructive, something more positive. And one area I've been involved in my local government work, I've been working with local government in various capacities internationally, helping to create good governance and promote local democracy, was the idea of twinning. And of course, after the war, many cities across Europe joined up and had partnerships. I've heard them call them local partnerships rather than twinning, as a rather special quotation. And those partnerships, I think if I recall, carrying numbers around 40 or 50 across the UK. And some are active, some are not so active. Very pleased that folks here, I think, is quite active. I'm very sorry, Rosie, that Canterbury is not active, and I think we need to look at how we get Canterbury more engaged with this partner in France and maybe elsewhere. But many other cities are involved. Whitstable, Herne Bay in this part of the world, and of course much of other East Kent places. And so it struck me that here's a ready-made vehicle, if you like, for us to maintain our links with our European friends, whether it's the level of schools, obvious case of school children, whether faith communities, whether it's the NGOs, business groups, and indeed I think business has a role, because given the way that much of East Kent business is out of the single market customs union, and many SMEs, small medium enterprises in Kent do market their products to Europe, having a link with their counterparts in the business community in Europe, Parliamentary City, would actually be very helpful. Chambers of Commerce exchanging business improvement districts, having contacts, learning how do we maintain our links with the market. That's one obvious area. As I said, the main one really is the community links, allowing us in our different capacities, wine clubs to name it, having exchanges, saying how good Kent wines are as opposed to French wines and German wines. So I think there are opportunities there to do lots of exciting things, sculptures, arts, which I know is very much championing, and full marks to you for doing that. And of course there is then, of course, I think very importantly, also the more formal local government to local government link. And many of those things are active. For example, Liverpool has a very active link with Dublin and with Cologne, Germany. Leeds has a very strong link with Dortmund in Germany. And the interesting thing about the Leeds-Dortmund link is that it's very much addressing the post-Brexit issues and how can we maintain linkages at each level, at the business level, how can we learn from each other's government experiences, good practices. And I think to conclude really, I won't take too long, there's sort of two areas. I already mentioned the post, the kind of issues around Brexit and the single market with businesses. And certainly when one looks at the whole post-COVID recovery, which is so essential for all of our communities, all of our local governments, all of our areas, I think here we can learn a lot from each other, how we're tackling the recovery, particularly going towards a green-led recovery, which I think is so important. And that brings me to my last point, Chair, and that is climate change. Climate change is absolutely critical. I was pleased to see the banner here walking into the French House about climate change. One of my local hats is being the chair of the Canterbury Climate Action Partnership, which brings together many community groups, Canterbury government, faith groups, our universities and schools. It's a very broad partnership, and I'm delighted that it's raised up with one of our patrons, together with the Bishop of Dover and others. And in October, we are going to do a one-week Climate Action Week here in Canterbury, and Canterbury District, not just the city. And that Action Week is going to have a local government day, a community day, a schools and universities day, a business day, which the different groups are going to be doing lots of action on carbon reduction, and the timing, of course, is very much linked to the big Glasgow COP26 conference, which starts the following week. So there'll be huge media attention on this area, we hope. There's going to be a lot of discussion. It'll kick off with the Bishop of Dover giving the Canterbury Cathedral service of the United Nations on Sunday. So lots of things are going to be happening. And the proposal I've already put to the East Kent, Chris and others, is that this would be a great opportunity to also fly the flag for Europe and show the great things Europe is doing, the Commission is doing, the Member States are doing on climate change, on climate action, carbon reduction. So I very much hope that the European movement will put up some events here, and I see Jan here, Canterbury Society, who is going to be helping with that as well, with lots of partners who are engaged in this work. So that very briefly is what I'd like to put forward, and I'm sure our colleague from Folks and others will be able to give us some practical ideas of what's already happening and how to build on that. But allow me to conclude with a little quote, which is from someone who probably needs an introduction to this audience, which was Jean Monnet, one of the fathers of Europe. And I've got a nice little quote from him. He said that, quote, "People only accept change when faced with necessity. People only accept change when faced with necessity. And only recognize necessity when the crisis is upon them." And I think that crisis is here. It's COVID, but it's also the crisis like Brexit. And we've got to overcome that by twinning about other partnership things which we can forward with our European partners until the time, hopefully, when we join the European Union as a full member. Thank you.
Monica, I don't know if you'd like to tell us a little bit about Folkestone Twinning Association. You could introduce yourself. Yeah. Do you want to come in?
My name is Monica Wheeler. I'm the founder and the chairman of Folkestone Twinning Association. We haven't been going for that many years. In fact, I think in 2019 we celebrated 10 years, our 10th anniversary. It was a slow start, but I was very lucky because at the time I was on the town council and I had delegated authority to twin Folkestone. I was rather vociferous about that because when I got on the council in 2004, I realised that Folkestone was at a dead end in terms of twinning with anyone. I understand it used to be quite prolific in the past, but when we formed the council, there was nothing going. So, me and my big mouth, they numbered me with finding a twin partner. It took us a few years, but in the end we did. So we're twinned with Attaché, which is in the north of France. And I think, the Twinning Association is my baby, really, so I put a lot of effort and heart into it. And I think we've come a long way. We've got 40 plus members, and we've been holding exchanges for the past 10, 11 years, both in France and in England. And I say France and England rather than Folkestone and Attaché because one of the aims is to promote parts of Kent as well, not only Folkestone. And the same goes for France. So we've had a lot of exchanges. We normally have about 6 a year, 3 in France and 3 in England. In addition to that, we have fundraising events. These are more private, if you like, but the French are invited. And the purpose of the association is to keep it going. Since the pandemic, of course, we haven't had any exchange at all. But we do keep in touch with them by email. And hopefully, at the next social event, which will be a lunch at one of our members' house, at the end of July or beginning of August, they will be able to come. They normally come to our events anyway. I don't know what Brexit is going to bring, how it's going to, impact on the association. But to be honest with you, we've established such a good, friendly relationship. I think we'll carry on despite Brexit. I don't know in what form, but we'll try to keep the events going. There have also been exchanges between sports clubs, school children, penny friends, that sort of thing. So, we've been very active. We'll see what the future brings, but as long as I'm around, I'll keep.
Well, as Rodica was talking about sports club, it brings us to Darryl Hayden, who's you can introduce yourself, but he's the CEO of the Kent Football Association.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do a bit of a double act with Joe, so I'll start and introduce Joe then. So I'm Darryl Hayden, I'm Chief Executive of the Kent Football Association. We primarily are the governing body of Kent Football, so we are linked in along with 50 other county football associations into the Football Association, which is the overarching governing body. Our aim really is to govern, develop, protect grassroots football across the county. I mean, we have around 750 clubs, 3,700 teams affiliated to us. We have 30 sanctioned leagues, and we have around 1,500 referees that are registered to us. So those from those 3,700 teams, we have around 55,000 people that play football in Kent every week. Alongside that, we have an army of volunteers that help that football happen. So we have a large movement, a large organisation that provides that football opportunity for people aged from under 7s to 6 to 7 year olds, right through to those sort of in their late 60s, early 70s through walking football. So we have a wide spectrum of opportunity that we offer everyone. A large number of our clubs will go and play tournaments in Europe. I think we've had pre-pandemic, we had a number of teams that applied to us to have that permission to go and play against foreign teams in foreign countries, and we had teams that went to Portugal, to the Netherlands, to France, to Spain, playing in local tournaments. So that's something that we're keen to explore. I was really interested in the twinning, and whether we, as a local football association, whether we could twin with a local football association in Europe, in France, or that be Germany, or whatever that might be. So we'd be really interested to explore that. But on that area of clubs going abroad, I introduced you to Joe. Joe's team actually did go abroad and went to come over.
Try and get up there, but might take me a little while. I apologise. Contrary to appearances, football's actually a really healthy sport and really good for you. So I highly recommend it. Yes, I did enjoy playing football this week. Hello everyone, my name is Jo and I'm the founder and manager of Canterbury Oberhauser United, which is a women's recreational football team. I've got about 50 or 60 local women who come together every week, not once, thank goodness, to play football. A lot of them, like myself, I didn't get a chance to play football when I was younger. I started playing 4 years ago at the ripe age of 48. So I'm 52 now, and I don't see myself stopping any time now. 2 years ago, we visited Soissons in northern France as part of the Old Girls World Cup. It was organised by ourselves, Canterbury Old Bags, and our very, very good friends called the Old Girls, who are kind of the original women's recreational football team. I must say, by the way, women's recreational football is one of the fastest growing sports in the UK at the moment. Teams are coming on all the time, and every single day we've got networks everywhere, and every single day we hear about new teams coming on. And so it's really, really exciting for women's recreational football. I don't know, 2 years ago we went to Soissons in northern France. You're okay? Might too loud, I do apologise. No. To Soissons in northern France to organise what we call the Old Girls World Cup. We had teams from the United States, we had teams from Wales, England, and then we had a lot of people from the rest of the world, which included French teams and people from other countries. We turned up at Soissons, bunch of crazy English women going, hello, can we use your stadium for the day? And they could not have been more kind and welcoming to us. It took about 6 months to arrange the tournament. The whole town of Soissons was right behind us, the council was right behind us, they gave us the stadium free. The club, Soissons Football Club, laid on the catering and so on. They've not been more welcoming and friendly. It was just an incredible experience. We had around 250 women come and play recreational football at Soissons. We will be going back to Soissons. We were hoping to go back this year, obviously that's not happening. We hope to go back in 2 years' time because in our hearts we Canterbury are forever twins with Soissons.
Michelle, I think you have a twinning and a football story.
Well,
Bit over because it's on the.
okay.
It's just on the back of this camera. Thank you very much.
I'm Michelle LaRue, not foreign by the accent. My father was French Canadian, my mother was London Irish. I'm vice chair of the Liaison Twinning Association, twins with a small town in France. And the football reference that Brian made is that we have an under-15 group, and we attended in our twin town a tournament which involved 48 teams from all over Europe, much in couples from outside Europe, and we won. Festival, our winning goal was scored by the girl in the team. We should have celebrated our 50th anniversary last year, but because of the pandemic we couldn't. So we're hoping to do it next year instead.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Stephen James, and I just want to say thank you this morning for letting me speak. First and foremost, I'm a teacher, but I'm also a Tory, so don't hold that against me. And I'm also the co-founder of Conservative Friends of Education. Now, while my position on Brexit might not quite align with yours, I agreed to speak this morning because firstly, Bryony bribed me with some delicious coffee cake, and anyone who knows Bryony knows that she's very difficult to turn down for anything. But it's also my kind of firm belief that we should be offering pragmatic solutions to the issues of the day. To be pragmatic, you need to speak to other people who don't kind of represent your way of thinking. Otherwise, you just turn into an echo chamber and you're just talking to yourself. So this is why I'm here, and I've loved listening to the other speakers so far, and I'm looking forward to listening to other people. Now, as part of our preparation for this, I canvassed opinions with my profession, and rather than offering a kind of lofty blue sky thinking, I thought it appropriate to offer practical solutions along two themes. First of all, partnerships, and then secondly, cultural capital. So first of all, I would encourage you as a group of people to direct schools that you know of, that you have relationships with, to the British Council's Partner with School scheme. There are already schemes in place that link schools up across the world, internationally, also within the EU. Not only does it have a database of searchable schools, but it also offers resources on practical activities that actually schools can do to build relationships and deal with a purpose. It's all well and good linking up a school, but if you don't put the actual activities in place to make it meaningful, it's not going to create a long-lasting relationship. So I'm really pleased actually to hear about the EU Ambassador Scheme, which sounds really great. On teachers and partnerships with teachers, and amongst teachers, I suspect you'll have a very kind of sympathetic ear to your calls.
And I think at the starting point of any teacher's career in teacher training, one of the things that teachers tend to do is an alternative placement where they might travel around the world to see teaching in different parts of the world. So I don't think it would be a difficult stretch of the imagination to link up with partnership offices, especially the one in Canterbury Christchurch, offering schools within the EU so that young teachers starting their careers can explore what teaching is like in another country and build relationships like that. And also there are outstanding, really great education systems in the EU. We look at Finland, for example, as a really good example of a high-performing education system. And I take early years as a good example. If we were to send our early years teachers on a teacher exchange program to Finland to learn what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and look at the research behind that, we could bring those things back to our own country and benefit from them. I was very lucky that I got to travel to Shanghai in 2018 to learn from their education system, specifically at maths. It was a long way to travel to learn about those things when we've got expertise on our doorstep, just across the channel. So I think that's a really positive way. And I also kind of think that Zoom has made our world a little bit smaller. So it's not, I think, difficult for teachers to open up professional dialogue with each other, reaching out to the best performing schools across the EU and linking them up with our best performing schools within the United Kingdom to make sure that we're building good relationships, but also improving education across the country and across the continent, as it were. And as far as I know, there's no database of teachers in either country where you can reach out and make links with individual teachers to learn from that kind of best practice. The next thing is kind of children and young people. Now, there are lots of kind of schemes in place. You've got your kind of low-level stuff like pen pals, exchange programs. But I also think, again, the digital transformation of our education system has brought children even closer together. The magic of Zoom enables teachers from across the world to beam into classrooms. So you kind of think how great would it be to have a German teacher actually teaching German, to have an English teacher teaching English to children in the EU. And then you've got breakout rooms where the children can actually potentially talk to each other and actually use those skills in a meaningful way, talking to children from a different backgrounds. And one of the really important things with education is to make it meaningful. If you're going to learn a language, you need to use it. And the kind of final thing is the cultural capital. And it's one of the many kind of buzzwords that's kind of bouncing around British education at the moment. And what it often translates into in schools is shared experiences. What are those shared experiences that unite us all? So you could think as a community from my community perspective, lots of representation from Folkestone here. What are the things that unite us in Folkestone? What are the things that unite us in Kent? What are the things that unite us in England that bring us all together? And then you step out a little bit wider. What are the things that unite us as kind of Europeans? And I think, again, one thing, and one of the things that the government is pushing at the moment is this idea of British values. What are British values? And you're having to teach that in school, but they're not that different from European values. You've got democracy, you've got liberty, rule of law. There are different ones, but look at the things that unite rather than divide, and that way you're going to have a common dialogue and a positive relationship building with people rather than kind of heckling from the corner. So it's, I think it's really important to be pragmatic. And I think the final thing I just wanted to kind of end on was also sport and how you were talking about the sport and unite, because obviously sport is a very important thing in schools. And I just wanted to ask Susanne if she would join me in wishing the England football team the best of luck against Germany on Tuesday.
Professor Richard's case, I think we already knew if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, I see, yes. Thank you, Brian. I was equally also dragged in last month by Brian with the temptation of cake and coffee.
And also a glass of
wine, actually.
And was reminded how expensive wine's become over the last couple of years or so. Yes, I'm a professor.
Back a bit. I'm a professor at the University of Kent, and also visiting professor at the University of Tilburg, visiting professor at Stockholm University, and also at Beijing University.
What's your name, please?
Richard Scase. S-C-A-S-E. I always have to do it over the phone. S for sugar, C for cat, A for apple, S for sugar, E for elephant. And my family lives in Sweden, and we have to be positive right now. But Brexit really has had a personal impact on myself, which leads to a gripe. One is that I've always over the years sent cheese to Sweden, because the cheese in Sweden is pretty awful. And I sent some very recently, my usual thing, packaging the cheese, and at the post office, I'm told that you have to fill in a customs form. So I now have to fill in a customs form to send cheese to Sweden. And also, in terms of the present situation, I have seen my family in Sweden now for 20 months. And the reason being for that is if you look at the regulations in Sweden, they are for Sweden itself and others in Scandinavia, they are for the EU, and then other countries, and it says in brackets, including the UK. And the regulations and stipulations from other countries, including the UK, are of course much stricter than they are for the other countries. My involvement with Europe has not just been in terms of Sweden and family, it's also been as a result of research that I've been doing. And it goes right back to, many years ago, when I did some work in the UK for the Cabinet Office. I was asked to write a scenario for the future of Britain. Just like that, write a scenario for the future of Britain, which I did. And that was used by various parliamentarians and people in government. But as a result of that, he was then invited to be involved as a research team looking at Europe and to create a scenario for the future of Europe. It was a very exciting project, and did this with colleagues from other universities and also from various officials from the European Commission. And that was very interesting, actually. It was rather like an interesting study in cross-cultural comparisons of behaviour. In that, like most meetings when strangers get together, there's silence. And so you need an icebreaker. And the icebreaker to start our meetings, we met at various cities across Europe, was where's the best restaurant to go to this evening? And that led always to a huge discussion, and then we got the whole thing going as a result of that. There's also another interesting experience in terms of cross-cultural differences within Europe, and that was in terms of arranging meetings. The delegates from Germany always wanted to have a nice structure of a program, they wanted to know kind of weeks in advance. The Italians, on the other hand, decided they would have, you never know what the program would be if organised by the Italians, on the grounds that you've got to be creative, you've got to be innovative, you've got to be flexible, and you've got to be adaptive. And they were always criticising each other for these different kinds of approaches. Now, as far as the research that we did in Europe, it was very dependent upon standardised data. And here Eurostat is absolutely invaluable, that by being a member of the EU from an academic point of view, the EU was a key driver. John Riley would perhaps say something about Erasmus, the Erasmus program, but something which is perhaps less publicised, the huge amount of research that was funded by the EU in terms of ranging from business to economics to social policy. And the great thing was the incredible data collected by Eurostat. So you've got these tables and charts, you can look exactly in terms of life expectancy in Sweden compared to Italy and France. We've got data in terms of the proportion of single-person households in England, Sweden, France and the other countries. And that, I think, is going to become increasingly difficult in the future. We're not going to be able to have access to that standardised data, which is so invaluable for social research, so invaluable for the development of social research in the UK. The European Union was a key driver, has been a key driver to a whole range of social policy and social research. Let me just give you one figure. There's only one country in Europe which has more food banks per head of the population than the UK, and that's Romania. We have more food banks than any other country in the European Union, with the exception of Romania. And that's appalling, as being one of the richest countries in the European Union, and of course in the world in general. And so coming on to further in terms of what I've been doing at the moment, in terms of research and so forth, I'm still involved at Stockholm University, the Institute for Social Research there, but also, as Carl has mentioned, Sweden's really very much ahead of the game in terms of climate issues. I have not seen a diesel bus in Sweden for years. I haven't, in the city in which I live, in the town in which I live, there's incredible policies in terms of sharing of heating systems, heat pumps, incredible policies in terms of how we get people out of cars and onto buses, out of cars, and onto their bikes. Whole emphasis in terms of cycle tracks. You have cycle tracks like the city, and you have kind of pump-up stations, and you have little repair stations where if you get a puncture, you can repair your bicycle on these tracks and so on. So huge number of initiatives of this kind. Well, in terms of from a local point of view, I'm the chair of the Canterbury Society, set up by Jan Parr. Took over from her. Jan did it for 10 years. I don't know how she survived doing it over 10 years. I reckon 3 or 4 years will be enough for me, because the amount of work that you do is incredibly varied. We're not just a heritage society, like many societies across the country. We're also involved in a whole range of other activities as well. We pressurise the council in terms of its building plans, in terms of its development policies, in terms of applications for smaller developments. But we just don't stop there. We're also involved, indeed, with climate and sustainability. We're also involved with biodiversity and green policies in the city. We're taking it, and we've become, I think, possibly not only just the fastest growing society in Canterbury, but also I think probably the most influential. I mean, the local council respects us, consults us, and asks for our opinion about various things. But we have one great weakness which we have to address. And that is we're too parochial. We focus very much indeed on Canterbury. We're too parochial, and we need to spread our wings. And because we're here in East Kent, we need to spread our wings much more significantly than we have up until present in terms of Europe. And so our next strategy, our next activity is to develop various twin relationships. And there are 2 places which come to my mind. One is personal, so I want to develop, I'd like to develop a twin relationship with Gävle, this is the town in Sweden which I live. And the other one, I think, which has a lot of common characteristics with Canterbury, in terms of its heritage, in terms of its size, in terms of its architecture, in terms of its quality of life, is Bruges. Brugge, pronunciation which, and I think that's our next stage, our next step. As we develop the society over the years to come. We want to become much more international, much more European. The sad story is, of course, those drivers towards being more European, of course, has been inhibited by Brexit, but we mustn't grumble. As it is, carry on as we did before, but indeed, here in East Europe, coming, of course, from University of Kent, Europe's university, UK university, Europe, keep that slogan, keep that byline. We've kept it on our various posters at the university, on our various banners, and so be it. And hopefully, the University of Kent, and also other institutions in Canterbury, like the Canterbury Society, will leverage these issues forward, notwithstanding Brexit. Thank you very much.
Right, Andrew Richardson is next on the list. You must introduce yourself, Andrew.
Yes. Could I just, before you start, make sure that speakers are at some distance?
Is that about right?
I think so, yes. Because we get notes coming from... Yeah, thank you.
So hello everybody, and thank you Brian for inviting me. So my name is Andrew Richardson, I'm an archaeologist. I'm going to talk about the importance of contact with Europe, with the EU, for anybody who wants to understand Kent's history, heritage, archaeology. Just before I say that, just a personal background thing. I was a Conservative councillor for many years, district councillor in Dover. I actually then did move, and I'm going to say this with some, don't shoot me. I did move to UKIP briefly, and I went into the referendum campaign way. But during the referendum campaign, I looked at the evidence, which I have to say, too few people did in this country, and I changed my mind about the EU, and I voted Remain. Nothing that's happened since has made me think I made the wrong decision. It's been an utter disaster. I know you said no gnashing of teeth, and this is about going forward and building on from where we are now, but it's been a cultural, political and financial disaster, and I will do everything in my power to see us get back in as a full member of the EU. Anyway, so I was born in Folkestone, I live in Dover, I work in Canterbury, although I'm shifting to another project down on the Kent-Sussex border, I'll talk about in a second. So I'm a proud man of Kent. If you understand Kentish history, Kent's story, it is all about contact with Europe and the wider world, but particularly Europe. Not just France, but the Low Countries, Germany, Denmark. This is actually where the kings of Kent, their ancestors came from. It's where the English came from. It's integral to our story and our heritage. And as an archaeologist, you cannot make sense of the archaeological record of East Kent in particular without reference to Europe. And over the years we have built, as archaeologists, many solid working relationships with colleagues across the Channel, and the EU in recent years certainly fostered, encouraged and supported that. Those links survive. We have friendships over there, colleagues that we dearly love and we wish to collaborate, continue to collaborate with. They wish to continue to collaborate with us. Zoom has its uses, it does, but it is no replacement for going over, seeing the landscapes, seeing each other's landscapes, seeing the cities, seeing the buildings, seeing the archaeology, touching the archaeology, collaborating, talking in meetings like this, going to a cafe or a restaurant, and that's actually where the best stuff happens, where our shared ideas happen. So we need to keep doing that. We need to be able to keep doing that. If there's any help that we can have from Europe House, we dearly want it. Currently I work at Canterbury Archaeological Trust. We've done a great deal in the past, particularly with an Interreg project, Boat 1550 BC, which was about the Bronze Age, and was focused on a Dover Bronze Age boat, and we built a replica boat in collaboration with colleagues from France and Belgium, and that was a fantastic project. What I would say, I think people like myself have benefited in the past from those sort of projects. What I'd like to see in the future is more ordinary people benefiting from these things. That in Lyd, I'm told by the vicar in Lyd, there are school children there who have never been to the beach. We're going to do something about that, but I would like to go further than that and get them to France, get them to Boulogne, working with my French colleagues over there. So we need to be doing more of that. And if you love Kent, if you're proud to be Kentish, proud to be English, you have to acknowledge the European role in that story. Now I'm just about to leave Canterbury Archaeological Trust and take a role as director of the Loston project based on the Kent-Sussex border, Rother, and we're very interested in the European dimension there, and the project sponsor has said to me, join the European, so my new employer, join the European Archaeologists Association. I will fund you to actively engage with that. But more than that, I want to draw European colleagues into that project, and actually ordinary European people, and particularly young people. So, unfortunately I can't stay this afternoon, but it'd be great to get a business card or something so we can see how Europe House can help with that. But yeah, if you're proud to be Kentish, if you're proud to be English, you have to be proud to be European.
Nigel, if we could call upon you. Do you want to come here?
Swing this right there, My name is Nigel Beaver. No, I'm just called him Nigel. I'm secretary of the East Kent European movement. My profession was chartered accountancy and banking in the UK and abroad. Since the 1960s, I've believed very strongly in the necessity for the UK to play a leading role in the EU. In the 1975 referendum, my wife and I campaigned in London to remain in the EEC, and we regard our departure from the EU as the worst event for the UK since the war. The main reasons for us being a member, we're all very familiar with it, it's worth reiterating them, is of course the size of the single market and the greater political strength derived from working closely with other nations. We are undoubtedly a poorer nation politically on our own. The EU is the biggest single market in the world, which Margaret Thatcher and other British governments played a major role in developing, and it takes almost half of our exports, or it did. The trade and cooperation agreement with the EU now governs our trading relationship. It's a free trade agreement for visible trade, but services, the biggest part of our economy, are excluded from this agreement. And the uncertainty about the ability of the UK financial service companies to trade in the UK is a big worry. And a lot of business has departed from London and other cities of this country. But a body has been set up to enable the UK and the EU to review regularly the workings of this agreement. And particular worries are on our side, I think, the volume of detailed forms needed to export to the EU is far, far greater than anyone ever imagined. Visas are needed for short visits affecting the cultural sector, and the volume of trade carried out by small and medium British companies has fallen quite markedly. Agriculture and fishing in Britain are being hard hit by our exit. The biggest worry I have at the moment, in the short term, is that the Parliament has not held the government to account. The agreement was debated by Parliament for less than a day. The government has disbanded the select committee set up to monitor the agreement. Only the European Movement, the Economist and the Guardian are holding the government to account at present. And the COVID pandemic has muted Parliament's oversight. And I'm very disappointed that I think many people are here at Labour's failure to hold the government to account. And I do believe one of the things we should do here in East Kent is that we should meet all East Kent MPs to ensure that they hold the government to account for their Brexit plans. Thank you.
Right, now I think we have Catherine with something positive to say to us.
Hello everybody, I'm used to talking but never to groups and never to one-to-ones. So hopefully I'll be okay. I'm not polished. I've also been locked in my dining room for the past year, working from home, so that hasn't helped. 5 years ago I was managing an economic development partnership, and that's how I met some of the people in this room. I met the referendum as a result of total disbelief, and I also felt very unwelcome because, believe it or not, I'm an immigrant and also I'm an economic migrant. I came here after the financial crash and had to start completely from scratch again. I was angry for a while, and then I hoped to overturn the result, but it didn't happen. 4 years ago, I joined, as I still work, Liaison Kent, which is Kent's inward investment agency. We work with businesses large and small, international, UK owned, and we help them grow and expand in Kent. We work with the Department of International Trade DFCIT, his government department, and they signpost what we call leads. They come our way. There are companies that are interested in investing in the UK. Before we knew what before the transition period had finished, and before we knew what exactly the rules and regulations were going to be, there was no investment. CIT will tell you that, will say everything was put on hold because businesses didn't know what the rules and regulations were going to be. So why would you invest? Okay. Now we know we're past the transition period. Investment is coming forward again. There is no room for negativity when we're marketing a region or a county or a country. You have to be positive. So that's it. Okay. So since so last year when we were in the transition period, the forms of investment were in that back. Okay, lorry parks and inland customs and stuff like that. That creates jobs in Kent that are needed. As soon as the transition period ended, we did get a lot. I personally dealt with an Italian company, a merger between an Italian company and a Swiss company, Susanne and Butti, who have come and established a customs operation in Dover, because Swiss companies and Italian companies already have customs expertise. They want to bring their software to the UK. They've appointed a first person who earns significantly more than I earn, so well-paid customs logistics knowledge jobs. And another company, a Dutch company, Austrian company, very like Unisfed, and that is another one of these joint JVs where the two companies said, let's go and enter the UK market as well, because they see an opportunity for their software and their knowledge and expertise in customs. Having said that, if you live long enough, you've seen it all before, is what I feel. The older I get, the more I feel that. So some old, they call them Doverians, people who lived in Dover all their life, and they will tell you that Dover used to be a hotbed for customs businesses many years ago as well. So they said it's just all gone full circle, it's all come back. In my job, I work with SMEs all the time because 78% of Kent businesses are SMEs, small medium enterprises. And for them, most of their trading's gone on. It's just there are just barriers that they have to overcome. The supply chains are interlinked. There's lots, yes, we all know what the problems are, but if you manage a business, you've got to find a way around it. What's I want to say? So in my honest opinion, trade and business will continue. What's the next wave of investment in Kent going to be? More Brexit contingency investments. I've got an Italian PPE company at the moment, not the masks that we're wearing, but you know when you work in jobs where you have to wear safety gear, so you have to stab yourself, that type of thing. They want to be in the UK because they feel that you need a proper UK presence and they need to be accredited by whoever you get accredited by. So there will be more investments by businesses that feel they need to be in the UK. We'll bring them to Kent, obviously, because they want to make sure that they abide by the rules and regulations in the UK as and when rules and regulations diverge. There will be a large amount of investment from Hong Kong, it's already happening, and there will be more, and maybe for Kent. There will be investment by house building and building contraction and building supply businesses. Because like in London as well, we're all building houses in the southeast, and where these businesses going to locate, they can't just locate in London, obviously. So of course they're going to be located in Kent, because this is a great location. Okay? Agri-tech and food tech as well, and life sciences. So I suppose my message is, and I've had to teach myself this as well, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And also, don't see realism, okay? Change is constant. There's death and there's taxes and there's change. So if we all live long enough, things will change again. And in the meantime, we just have to be positive. Okay? So that's my message. Thank you, Brian.
That's really good to hear of all the European companies coming to set up. It's an aspect I haven't thought of.
Yeah, this happened, when did we go back to work? 3rd of January. By the 10th of January, they were coming at me. So, yeah, it's good.
Right, our next speaker is Steve Bowen. You can introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Steve Bowen. I'm chair of Kent Humanists. Brian didn't write the cake and wine, so we'll talk about that later. Kent Humanists is a partner group of Humanists UK. And back in 2016, Humanists UK held their convention in Birmingham around about the time of the referendum. And they're usually well-attended events. There's usually 500 or 600 people at these, and there was a sort of straw poll, show of hands, who was for Brexit, and there was literally a slack handful. So the humanist movement within the UK at any rate appears to be almost overwhelmingly a Remain organisation, although Humanist UK doesn't take a political position on it. Certainly the membership is very much around Remain. My experience of our own members in Kent Humanists is we're also a Remain organisation. Now, it doesn't surprise me particularly that humanists are pro-EU. I mean, not only because as humanists we do tend to pride ourselves on using reason and evidence to navigate the world and understand how the world works, and there's a couple of people who have already said anybody who applies reason and evidence to the Brexit question should be landing on the side of working within the EU. But I think the other thing is that humanism as a philosophy is intrinsically an inclusive one. We have chapters that are specifically for LGBT people, for the armed forces. We are very active in climate action. Humanist climate action is run by Professor Richard Norman in Canterbury. So, we see ourselves as a global movement, and indeed it is a global movement. Every 4 years there's a World Humanist Conference in Oxford, which I attended. Yes, we have people from, I get into it, and yes, and we have people from the African subcontinent, and from Asia, and from the US, and of course from Europe. And I think, one or two people have also said that organisations can become quite provincial, and I wouldn't at all accuse of being a little provincial. And I think one of the things about coming to talk to a group like this and hearing what everybody is doing, and certainly taking Kent Humanists forward, I'm going to try and make an effort to make some contacts through international humanists with some of our counterparts across the channel, and see if we can get ourselves involved in a dialogue and some cultural exchange. The only last thing I think I would like to say is that there is in Westminster an all-party humanist group, and I think that they may well be a good source of lobbying pressure to assist us in our communication with the EU, and hopefully one day rejoin. Thank you.
And all the way from Edinburgh, we have Gavin MacDonald, who's going to give us a bit of a Scottish perspective.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, you might be wondering why somebody comes down from Edinburgh to address a meeting in Kent, but as a few people have already observed, when Brian asks you to do something, he doesn't take no for an answer. So, I mean, my Scottish perspective on Europe, I think the European issue is intimately bound up with the other big constitutional issue, which is the matter of independence and Scotland's position within the UK. we had an independence referendum that was rejected in 2014, so Scotland voted by narrowly, but it was a solid margin to stay as part of Europe. And the leader of the independence or the Yes campaign at the time, Alex Salmond, famously said, "This is a once in a generational thing. It's not going to come round again anytime soon." The reason that it's still a live issue, of course, is Brexit, because David Cameron argued that the best way for Scotland to secure a future within Europe was to remain part of the UK. And of course, a year or so later, we saw how that turned out. So that's why there's still an issue over Scottish independence, and why probably, although the Conservative government rejects the idea of a second referendum, I don't think it's going to go away until there is a second referendum. So I think that inevitably will happen at some time or other. The outcome of that, I think, is going to be very close to calling. I don't think it's an open or shut case. Most polls see it as being 50-50. A big part of the result of a future Scottish referendum is about Europe, because the independence movement would say that we will secure a future within Europe as an independent Scottish nation. I don't think it's as cut and dried as that. I think that a lot of European figures, while Brexit was still in play, people like Donald Tusk were quite keen to keep the idea of an independent Scotland becoming part of Europe in play. But that's been, I haven't heard much on that in the last year or so, and I suspect that it would not be an open or shut case. I think it would be a very complicated process to get for an independent Scotland to get back into Europe. There's a whole bunch of other unanswered questions as well, whether it's the future of the monarchy, the future of the BBC, the trading relationship with our biggest partner, which is England. We've seen how that's worked out at the moment in Ireland. So a border on the island of Britain would be even more complicated, I believe. So I hope that we will not, I think there's going to be a referendum. I hope that we will vote to remain part of the UK, because I am a unionist. And I think that our future as Scotland within the UK will be enhanced if England can move towards a more pro-European stance, and I think that's something probably most people here would agree with. But at the moment, we don't know. It's a very open question.
This is the chairman of the East Kent European Movement, Chris Hammond.
So my name is Chris Hammond. I'm the chair of East Kent European Movement since March. I'm also on the Working Party, which grew out of Grassroots for Europe. And the Working Party is entitled Festival of Europe. In fact, since we started, it's also had on an add-on of Summer of Europe. And the aim back then was to form this working party, and it has developed and it continues to develop. In the meantime, we've got several people with contacts working on sponsorship. We've formed a company, limited. We have directors, and I have spoken to Jeremy and Sullivan yesterday about further liaison on that. We had some excellent news. We've got on board already the United Strings of Europe, who will be touring Britain. The aim is to make it national and to make it across a large span of time. The intention is to start on the 4th of May next year and to finish with a festival in one location. We want to involve as many European groups as possible that are already in Britain. Ideally, we would like to get groups across from the continent. And I know that even in this house, the manager is a member of the Latvian choir of London, I think it is. So there are already groups in place. The intention is also to link up with organisations like Curzon Cinema and to put co-branding onto their events which are pro-European or are European. I think that's really all I've got to say at this point. We are working on it. We have a meeting at the moment every week. And clearly the aim is, it would be too early to start this year, of course. But the way things are going, I expect that it will be starting next year in 2022. The aim is to have an event, a large event, every year. It would depend on funding, but Jeremy Sullivan has, well, as a result of our talk, I think more developments are possible. I'm not quite using the subjunctive entirely about we would, we should, we could, but there's certainly great will to get this festival into action. And it would be something that local groups would be able to tie into. So for instance here, I know that in London, the Italian group does walks around buildings and places that have a link to Italy. That could be done certainly here in East Kent with its origins, with people even sitting in this room, I believe, with links to the Huguenots who made Canterbury and East Kent a home once they were expelled or chose to leave from France. I think I've given you all the key information. It's really just to say that we are developing towards that, and it's keeping hope alive and keeping up bridges with the rest of Europe. Thank you very much. I'll probably speak at the end just to say a few other things as well, but not in connection with this. Thanks very much.
Well, I have saved our most impassioned speaker for more or less last. It's John Wright. He was one of the founders of the Erasmus programme and was very, very distressed by the result of the referendum. But he has put his vast energy into new thoughts, and we're going to hear what they are.
Well, I wish they were new. The trouble is that, as somebody says, you see circles going round, and the ideas perhaps aren't percolating through in a imaginative and innovative way. I want to say, actually, I regard myself as a European. Britain is a European country. Our language is European, having stolen from all the other European languages. I also want to say that Andrew referred to Interreg. I suspect that many of the people here have never heard of Interreg, but it's an example of the outreach of the European programmes. And it is to me a great sadness that we are no longer in these programmes. Bradley said that I was involved with Erasmus, and indeed I was involved before Erasmus with a programme called the Joint Study Programme. It may surprise you to know that the Joint Study Programme, which was in many ways similar to Erasmus, 67% of the programmes were UK programmes. The UK was the biggest participator in the Joint Study Programmes, from which Erasmus was born. And the first UK national agency for Erasmus was up the hill at the University of Kent. And it was my good luck to set that up, be the director for 20 years. And as a result of that, I was also asked to head up up the UK Tempest Office, which was for the 27 neighbourhood countries, and when an amazing and imaginative programme in education, Erasmus Mundus, for joint masters, for joint doctorates was set up. The national office for that was also at the University of Kent. And the university, as Richard has said, has maintained that European dimension. I was really saddened in the Irish Times this week. There was a great photograph with the Irish Higher Education Authority celebrating the record number of Irish students participating in Erasmus and saying that Erasmus actually, in its new iteration for the next 7 years, has actually expanded in all sorts of ways. And one of the important things in that is social inclusion. It's one of the key parts of the new Erasmus programme. And I'm very sad to say, Stephen, that all the sorts of things you were talking about, links between schools, links between teachers, all those sorts of things were integral to Erasmus. They're not going to be part of the new Turing programme, which is not a reciprocal programme, it's a one-way programme. But my message, if you ask me to be positive, is actually the youth. And that is where, we need to put our energies. And we are very fortunate in Canterbury. We've got 3 universities, the one up the hill, Canterbury, and part of what used to be called CAIA, the University of the Creative Arts. And that is where there can be real dynamism. And again, it's a tragedy, and I have to say, and I'm sorry if this upsets some of you, but I think the reason for withdrawing from Erasmus was political. It was because it gave our young people a European dimension to their education. They mixed with young people from all the other European countries. It wasn't simply that they went to Sweden and met Swedish people, but actually, curiously enough, they didn't meet so many Swedish people, but they met Germans, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Greeks, and they discovered that there was so much on offer from these countries. We talk about our great National Health Service. Well, I think in a way it has been absolutely splendid over COVID, but it showed the shortcomings. And any of you who've been in a hospital in France or Germany and compare that with the hospitals we have here, would actually be hard put to say that we've got the very best. So keeping these links alive, fostering interaction with universities, and one of the good things that the government has agreed is that the UK will participate in Horizon Europe. How many of you know what Horizon Europe is? Not many. It is an amazing, massive research programme. Look it up, because all the topics in that programme are central to what we're interested in. And thank goodness that UK universities will continue to be involved in that and collaborate with their partners.
Can you repeat what it is? Of Europe? What of Europe?
Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe, it's a massive EU research framework programme, and if you look at it, what are they concerned with? Health, cancer, climate change, social inclusion, arts, and bringing people, young people, researchers, doctoral programmes together working on these issues. And thank goodness the UK is going to continue to be involved in that, because that will give, at the heart of where our future must lie, which is in education, it will give a strong European dimension. That's my positive note. But the big thing is to get information, because unfortunately, most of our friends and colleagues in Canterbury, East Kent, the wider UK have never heard of these programmes, don't know what's going on, don't know the projects which are being done. Please, get your delegation to tell the British public, Rosie, get out there, tell people what's happening, because that's the big problem. We are in a world of misinformation, post-truth. We need the real message to be coming from you for our young people and for our future. Thank you very much.
Everybody in the room who was attending so quietly and kindly, if they have anything to say, any points of clarification, any short thoughts they'd like to give themselves, please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is James Brown. Okay. Just a really quick point. I just wanted to sort of say that you know, as a kid growing up in East Kent, I was involved with Hyde was twinned with Susanne. I don't know if that twinning is still going. Canterbury, I believe, should be twinned with Reims or Allen, I think it's pronounced. You know, so I think there are remnants of historical twinning arrangements out there, and it would be great to. I mean, there seems like a lot of synergy between those two cities as well, of course, as Bruges as well. So I just wanted to see if some of those things could be resurrected.
Anybody else with questions or points they'd like to make?
The people on the stream.
Oh, I don't know how to operate that.
How are we going to do that? I'm going to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very pleased to say actually that this event is international. We've had a question from the group which I'm a member of, Line German-British Society. I joined that earlier this year. One of their people, Jeff Neffcoat, I think it is, or his name, he's actually asked a question, and I would like to say hello to him over yonder on the continent. And his question, which actually is addressed probably to John Riley, can we address post-Erasmus UK visas for EU students and musicians, actors, etc. These sound bureaucratic and very restrictive. Is there any solution? Before you answer, John, I would like to make some other points as well, but first of all, perhaps, John, if you could come up and answer as best you can.
I don't think I can, but I'm very hopeful, and maybe our EU colleagues and Rosie can say something about this, that actually when sanity prevails, we will get back to a situation where we can find a way of footballers being able to get employment in the UK. But in a way, unfortunately, this is one of the things which was never mentioned in the referendum. That it is, if you are coming, for example, from, where should we say, Uganda to Europe, you have to go through a lot of procedures. And we, in some senses, like Uganda, we are a third country now and have to be treated according to the rules and regulations of the EU in that way. And we have, of course, negotiated something which is a little bit better in terms of the trade agreement, but there are going to be still a lot of difficulties. People who own property in France can now, unless they've managed to get residence, can only stay there for 90 days. And that's very sad for them if they've lived there for a long time, but it's one of the real problems, and that's why I think we have to keep alive. I know you said we've got to get on with life. My life is nearly finished. I'm trying to get on with it, or log it. But nevertheless, we've got to try, through our politicians, through our representatives in the European delegation, to ameliorate as far as we possibly can. I wish I could say, yes, we should have visa-free travel, but I'm afraid that's not going to happen immediately, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the situation, I mean, we have this trade and cooperation agreement, and that is the framework, and as far as the EU is concerned, this is better than having nothing. But we should also consider and that this can be the basis on which other things can be built on. And I think the EU would be more than happy to have the UK rejoining the Erasmus programme and equally to find an arrangement about free movement for the cultural sector, but it's all based on reciprocity, and that is the basis for it. But we have hopes that with the parliamentary cooperation as well, and with the Parliamentary Partnership Assembly, that could be perhaps be further impetus also for the government and the Commission, who are in the Partnership Council, which is the executive. But if this parliamentary component can give a bit of a push and impetus to develop further these sort of leftovers that have not been dealt with, I think there can be hope.
Can I just come up? Rosie.
Not so dear, but yeah.
This one, yeah. Thank you. Please don't anyone get the impression that just because it looks as though nothing's happened, that's, you know, there's lots of sort of swanny feet paddling under the water, obviously, and lots of negotiation behind the scenes, as always. But one thing that the government just simply did not address, it literally wasn't spoken about as far as anyone on my side or anyone that's asking questions can understand, is this question of touring and visas and musicians coming and going. I'm seeing a friend this evening actually who represents the Equity, the Actors Union. And although we're friends, she lives in Whitstable and represents a lot of kind of artists and actors who ask me these kind of questions, and we, between us, we sort of research through questions asked by people like me in Parliament, or written questions, and there just are no answers. We are literally not getting answers from the government about what they've done. The EU have left the door open. You know, let's not beat around the bush. The EU has said if we want to discuss or talk about those things that weren't agreed or weren't in this deal, then we can. But the government is not doing that, I'm afraid. You know, without being too partisan and political about it, that's just the situation. They're not negotiating those things, so we are left with no answers. I can keep banging on about it and keep asking questions, but you know, we are not, you know, the opposition parties are not in power, and we don't have a say in that. We can just keep monitoring them, and that's what I will do. But we don't have any answers as to why that wasn't negotiated, and I get the feeling from our new counterparts that they are just as baffled about why that was left out as those in opposition. So it's $1 million question, and I would really like to keep on trying to get answers, but I don't have any at the moment. I'm not going to pretend it's all going to be wonderful, but we just have to keep pushing at those doors, and that's all I can do. So.
Just one quick comment, if I may, and coming back to the Trinity, it's great to see how many people in the room are involved in various forms of exchange between our local partnerships, as I like to call them, you know, the football clubs, the maids of local groups, and I think it's something where we can really move forward and build on that. But I would like to see the more formal local government to local government partnership revived. You know, there is the Canterbury ring linkage, which is pretty dormant and needs to be revived. There are other things that were mentioned, Whitstable, Canterbury and others. And I think those need to be built up. And I don't think the excuse which local government often gives is that there's no money is a valid one, because as somebody said quite rightly, we have Zoom. And Zoom is a perfect way to exchange, to learn from each other, to have linkages about good practices, whether it's the post-COVID economic recovery, whereas climate change, which I mentioned is going to be such a key concern, is so much central to our young people. And I think, as again somebody said earlier, we have to attract the young, and climate change, climate emergency is exactly the way in which we could have exchanges with European counterparts and learn about the great things that are going on in cities and towns and communities across the continent. But the final sort of point, very briefly, Chair, thanks for giving me the floor and inviting me. To finish off again with a positive note, I did mention omit to mention earlier that we have set up a formal working group in the European Movement and Grassroots for Europe, which I've been able to bring together, which is going to looking at the whole issue of twinning. We're going to do an inventory of what exists currently, what is active, what isn't active. Then from that inventory, we're going to develop some good practices, give some examples of what are good twinning links, like there's some great examples in this room, and in my hat with the East Kent European Movement, I will be feeding in the East Kent experience into that national group. And then finally, I guess we do have to take into account the whole COVID scenario, and I suspect that'll be next year. We'll be trying to sort of really activate and motivate new training links, new partnerships across the UK, building on all the good practices we've identified and the existing links which so many of you in this room have actually demonstrated today. Thank you for that.
I want to thank all our speakers. I do have a few words to say myself, if you're not all completely exhausted. My first point was that we should all individually, sometimes we feel a little helpless if we're not part of a big organisation or occupying an important position. But in our own lives, we can be as European as we can by learning European languages, reading European literature, studying art and history, visiting all the countries of Europe, doing house swaps, and of course the twinning associations. Social relationships we can build up, ranging from friendship to marriage. We can also interact with organisations that do interact with Europe. There's humanism, which Steve Byrne talked about. There are tours of cathedrals. There are World War memorial sites. There are art tours. The Louvre in Paris has opened a branch at Lens in France, which is very close to Calais, and we could organise visits there. There are painting trips, writing retreats. People like to walk pilgrimage routes. There are famous ones. There's one from Canterbury to Rome, and there's an organisation called the Fraternity of Pilgrims to Rome, or something like that, which leaves from the cathedral here and goes along. And there's sport, which we've touched upon. So I did think with all these ideas that we should perhaps have an eager Remainers EU travel agency to set up some sort of visits. And that would be a business idea for somebody. And that made me think of another business idea. It would be quite something to have a shop in Canterbury or in Folkestone, one of our East Kent towns, which specialises in European things. You know, library of books, a coffee shop. We could invite speakers and we could sell things from the different countries. And I think that would be a sort of European centre in Canterbury. I don't know if there already is one, but that's a bit of an idea if anybody fancies setting up a business. And then I thought of ways of doing some research in the East Kent area. One is to find out how many people here are actually married to Europeans from different countries, because that would form a core group. And the second, sorry?
Can we have a show of hands as we're here?
Oh, yes, well, we've got some Europeans.
We're all European.
We're all European. And then I had the idea about European restaurants. We all know about French, Italian and Greek ones. But what about all the other countries? Have they got restaurants in the East Kent area? Should we build up a directory of European restaurants? Things like that we can do just from here without very much support behind us. And by doing that, we would find out more and more people who are interested in these aspects. So I just wanted to bring in those points, and I'll leave the last word to Chris.
Not necessarily the last word. I've got to mention we are International Point 2. The Cercle de Côte d'Opale Synergie got notification from me, because I'm a member of that group, and they are, Côte d'Opale is the coast on the other side of the channel. and I expect that one or two people may be watching from northern France, so we've got that sort of link. I'd also like to put my third hat on, that is coordinator of Kent bylines. I've taken a step back at the moment because of this event and various other things, but do go online, Kent bylines. Look for it, look for Yorkshire bylines. It's citizen journalism and it's amazingly good. I'd also like to mention that by being a member of the... I have a flat in Germany, and during that time I listened to the German-British Society and joined the society. They are in the Rhine-Main area, Frankfurt. I've also been in touch 2 years ago and maintained the link with Europe Direct. That's in Germany. There is a Europe Direct office more or less in every town. That's how much they value Europe and belonging to Europe. Britain used to have two, one in London, one in Edinburgh. I think they've closed. Europe Direct. Yes, they've closed. Alas. I have been in touch with Michael Kopliva. He's Czech, but he's running the office in Würzburg. And I will be doing a stand in Würzburg representing the UK at the Europe Day, which they've postponed this year to the 10th of October. So Britain will be represented. So in that way, I see myself as building some bridges, certainly from Germany to Britain. I am half German and half British. I do have dual nationality and residency in Germany. There are a huge number of links in this room, and we've heard some amazing speakers with a huge number of ideas put into the melting pot. And it would be, and I'd love to take on every one of them, but I'm already at capacity. And one proposition is that everybody who is in this room and has therefore supplied their email address, we've got those email addresses. I could circulate those email addresses to everyone else that's in this room, unless you tell me that you don't want that to happen. And I think that's one way that everybody in this room can maintain the link with this meeting and with this event, and can build on that, can develop anything that they so wish with the specific person that's given the talk. Also, can I say this, Brian? That the idea also was, out of this meeting, you've mentioned this afternoon, if anyone wants to speak individually with any of the speakers here, but there was also the idea that we would have separate Zoom meetings at some point in the future, possibly in the autumn. So if anybody wanted to Zoom in on Carl to do a session for an hour on twinning, or perhaps to Zoom in on Europe House, or to Zoom in with the Football Association, or with education, with the twinning, etc. And all those that have spoken on archaeology, amazing talk, thank you. They were all amazing. That's also a possibility, and that's something we'd like to do, and I'd be willing to facilitate that. I don't know whether I can be involved in everything. I'd love to, as I say, but my day is only 24 hours, unfortunately. Is there anyone else who would like to make any points, comments, ask any other questions at this point?
Chris, can I just say, because I'm not sure if Carl Wright was aware, and I'm not speaking on behalf of them because I'm not employed by them, but KCC is involved with something called the Short Straits Committee. Have you heard of that? Yeah, okay, so that's an official, twinning is probably the older verb, you probably modernise the verb, but it's an agreement in principle for councils, bordering the short straits, which I had to Google and discovered it meant the channel, right, okay, and all the different councils have agreed to meet, talk, share, and try and work together.
That was Catherine Igo asking a question directly to Carl Wright. It was about, she mentioned that KCC. I do apologise. I can't take that call. It was Catherine Igo taking the... And I did put it on Do Not Disturb. So I think that will... that question, that link has been made.
Right, just one little story, which is a positive one, which might be an idea for the future. When the Erasmus students were here, they put on a play in a pub, the Unicorn Pub, it's not a thing, but the Unicorn. And that sort of thing also, that packed the pub out for 3 evenings, and they were from all over Europe. So maybe that's an idea for the future. We still have a lot of international students coming to Canterbury to do something like that in a pub, which is really getting where, you know, the local people are, can make a big impact. And that certainly did. It was a few years ago, and it was a great experience and shows what young people can do. And that's where I think you should put our energy, with the youth.
Riley, can I add a point as well?
Yes.
Just very quick one. That is that when we're discussing Europe during the course of this morning, it's essentially mainly France and Germany. We shouldn't forget Scandinavia. It's a highly innovative, highly creative, leading-edge collection of countries. But also, of course, we shouldn't forget Poland and the East European societies. And there's almost a divide emerging within Europe, it seems to me, between France, Germany, the original member states, the large economies, and the others. And I think that's something which we need to address if we are truly, as John says, as we all are, Europeans.
I'd just like to respond to that from Richard's case and in linking to the Festival of Europe. Deborah Kelly, who's in the University of Westminster, she's got links in all the universities and schools through routes to languages, etc. The two of us have divided Europe up into two, northern and southern. She knows we've got contacts in southern Europe. And so to address that, I'm in charge of Northern Europe, and with cultural institutes, we're in the process of contacting them for the Festival of Europe. So we do, of course, we want to include Europe, and not just the EU, in this festival, because we are a member of the Council of Europe, which is more than just the EU. And in fact, the Council of Europe flag is the one that you all think perhaps is the EU flag. It's originally, I believe, the Council of Europe flag. We've had 2 VIPs, well, we've had a lot of very important people here, but 2 who've come down from London, from Europe House, and I'd like to just present them with a token book each, the same book, for Kent. They are later in the day going to receive a bottle of Kentish wine as well. And so I think I'll go over and present them.
Can you tell us what the book is?
It's a short guide to Kent. It's sort of, the ideal book is pictures and text. It doesn't exist anymore. The ideal book was Nicholson, but that was at the beginning of the 90s. This particular book is more a guide with pictures and text. It was an idea back in April. And Brian and I have been in phone contact since then. Phone calls galore, and so on, etc. Bryony has put an happen. You know, it's been a grand plan, then you get the detail, etc., etc. I really, really think that she deserves a huge amount of applause. She's not alone. Everybody that spoke today deserves a thank you. I'd like to... Oh, she's gone. No, she's out the door already. Rosie, coming along as well, especially. I'd like to thank the audience. We have an audience here, apart from the speakers, as well. And I must say, great thanks to all the speakers that have been here and putting all those ideas, as I said, into the melting pot. We had that technological glitch at the beginning of the event, which you may not have noticed out there in the virtual world, but it all came right in the last moment, and thumbs went up, and this happened. And I'd like to thank George Allen and Pam Yao for maintaining that, and another member of the team, Nick Mengham, who's recently moved constituency, and he was on the camera behind the scenes. So without them, also it wouldn't have happened. Thank you, everybody that's in this room. We all have plans now. There is another event coming up. There is a little donation box if you would like to care to put a donation in towards East Kent European movement. I've said my piece. Thank you. Bryony, do you want to say anything?
Only that we're thinking of going to lunch if anybody would like to join us.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think